When faith feels complicated, start with what Jesus said. Love God, love others. This isn't about having all the answers. It's about choosing where to begin. Start here.
Welcome back. I'm Danny, and for the last few weeks, we've been in a series called Start Here. It's a phrase we use all the time when trying out a new playlist, recipe, or even a new show. It's where we begin when something matters. And speaking of things that matter, maybe you've heard people use the term GOAT. It doesn't refer to a furry farm animal. It stands for greatest of all time. Whether it's music, sports, food, or fashion, people love debating what's the best. But you know what's crazy? How quickly something can go from the greatest to the worst in our minds. Think about it. Maybe there was a song that was popular 6 months ago, you loved it. Then it got so overplayed that now you think every time you hear it, you think, ugh, that is the worst song. It's the worst. Can you think of one? Remember a few years ago, everyone played Among Us and yelled out sus constantly. Now, nobody even talks about it. Talk about a fad that faded. Or remember when we played Wordle or got obsessed with Poppets or wanted to drink boba tea? These things went from main character energy to, well, over. What I'm really talking about is value. The value of something, how much something is worth to us, changes really quickly. We're just as quick to do the same thing with ourselves. For most of us, there are times when we feel like we're doing pretty well in life. Things are going great. Maybe we even feel like we're great. Our value goes way up. Maybe you feel great when you had a good hair day, got your phone back after being grounded from it, got noticed by your crush, or you had no homework, you had a sub who let you watch a movie, or there's free food, you had a great game, and maybe you got a whole lot of attention for something. In other words, there's a formula to being great. You do something well, plus people notice, equals you're great. But maybe you've seen that the opposite can happen too. Even quicker than a song or a trend, we can go from being the best to the worst. Maybe sometimes you feel like your value drops when someone makes a joke about your outfit, or someone embarrasses you on purpose, or your crush asks out someone else, or you find out someone was talking bad about you, even though they smiled to your face. Or worse, you find out you were left out of the group chat. And when that happens, you see the opposite equation play out. You don't do something well, plus people don't like or don't notice you, equals you're not that great. The point is, for a lot of us, our greatness is fragile. Whether you place yourself in the greatest column or the worst column, it can change quickly. And it's usually associated with what other people think of you. Your value goes up or goes down based on every move you make. And even though we know that's probably not a great thing for most of us, it's still true. Maybe even more true than we want to admit. And it creates this constant sense of trying to not mess up. Maybe you've never used this word for it, but we all experience anxiety about what we do, how we do it, and who's watching. We find ourselves asking questions like, what if I don't get into the college I want? What if my GPA drops? What if I actually start trying and my grades don't get better? What if I can't keep up with my schedule? What if I'm not funny enough? What if my injury keeps me from playing and I don't get a scholarship? Or what if I disappoint people? And those what ifs feel like a bigger deal because we're not just talking about a bad performance or no performance. It becomes who you are or who you aren't. Until we spend most of our days stressed out and worn out. We live with a sense of being on edge because at any moment we can go from high value to low value. Most of us don't think about it, but that's reality. So the question is, can you really do anything about that? Even if we know it's not the best, is it just simply the way life is? Today, I want to talk to you about a time Jesus was talking to the Pharisees. The Pharisees were a super religious group of Jewish leaders in Jesus' time. They were experts in the law. Think Bible lawyers meets hall monitors. They followed all of the rules and then added extra ones just to be extra safe. We know this conversation happened because a doctor named Luke decided to investigate everything Jesus did and document it. In fact, the first 4 books of the New Testament section of the Bible are all similar accounts of Jesus' life recorded by 4 different people. Luke was one of those, and he includes this moment in Luke 15, 1-2. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear Jesus, but the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Before we go further, let's pay attention to who's there. The Pharisees were the law experts. They weren't exactly fans of Jesus. They're kind of annoyed because who else is there? Tax collectors and sinners. Being a tax collector back at this time was way worse than working for the IRS today. Tax collectors and sinners weren't just your average people who made a few bad decisions. They were known by everyone for being the bad people in society. They were the people your mom would tell you not to hang around. Why? Because you'll end up with a bad reputation. They had the lowest value in society. And there they are, listening to Jesus with the most respected people in society. I think one of the reasons Luke documented this moment is because of how crazy this scene was. The good guys, the bad guys, never hung out together. And yet, there they both are. So Jesus brings up a subject they could all understand: sheep. And then Jesus told them this parable in Luke 15, 3-6. Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Doesn't he leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. And then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, "Rejoice with me, I found my lost sheep." Jesus did this a lot. He would tell a story to help people understand what God was like. Back then, everybody knew how shepherds looked out for sheep. That's a shepherd's job. It's a good thing too, because sheep can be pretty stupid. They wander off, they get in trouble, they mess up. Jesus is basically saying, if a sheep gets in trouble, a good shepherd goes after it. The crazy thing is, that's not true, because if the shepherd leaves 99 to go after one, the 99 are in danger. Shepherds would be out of a job pretty quickly if they left masses of sheep without any supervision. Chances were better that a shepherd would just cut his losses on the one and keep a better eye on the 99 to make sure he didn't lose anymore. So when Jesus suggested this, it definitely caught the attention of the crowd. Why? No shepherd did this. Jesus continued in verse 7. I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent. In other words, this isn't really a story about sheep. It's about God and people. It's about Pharisees and the sinners. No one would have been confused about who Jesus was talking about in this story. The Pharisees were the good sheep. The sinners and the tax collectors were the sheep who ran off. They were bad performers. And while Jesus was in front of both groups, he told a story about a shepherd who cared about both groups. The good shepherd wasn't satisfied with staying beside the good sheep and letting the not-so-smart ones wander off and get what they deserved for leaving. No, he went after that wandering sheep. Why? Because the value of the sheep had nothing to do with whether it stayed close or wandered off. That sheep mattered because it belonged to the shepherd. In other words, a sheep's value doesn't come from what it does. A sheep's value comes from simply being a sheep. The meaning of this story was clear for the Pharisees and the tax collectors. Your performance, what you do, how you behave, how other people see you, all the stuff that you think gives you high or low value, it doesn't. Your value doesn't change because your value doesn't come from what you do. That doesn't mean that the things we do don't matter. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't study or work hard or try hard, play hard. All of those things make your life better. But don't miss this. They won't make you better. Your value won't change because your value never came from those things in the first place. If we could really get this, I think it could change so much about our lives. Look at the greatest commandment. The thing Jesus said mattered more than anything else. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. Jesus connects our ability to love God and love others to our ability to love ourselves. This may sound strange, but you know this already. You can't love others well if you don't like you. You can't put others first if you're constantly focusing on yourself, trying to perform well and trying to raise your own value. Think about it. When you treat others the worst or talk trash about people, maybe hurt your siblings, yell or go off on someone, try to make someone else look bad, don't you do a lot of those things because you feel bad about you? Because someone or something has made you feel like your value is dropped. But the opposite is true too. When you know you're valuable and understand that your performance doesn't change that value, that's when you stop feeling worthless. When you know that the shepherd thinks you're worth it, it frees you up to stop managing your own value and start loving your neighbor as yourself. That's when you can treat other people like they matter more, say good things about people, encourage your siblings, give someone a break when they hurt you, and try to make someone else look good. When you feel good enough about you to start looking out for other people, your life gets better and you begin to love your life more. You worry and stress less, you have better relationships and less drama. You stop trying so hard to impress people and you start living life the way it was meant to be lived. Let me say it this way. Loving your life comes from knowing your worth. I get that for most of us in the room, this feels like a stretch. For a lot of us, we swing from feeling okay to worthless and back again all the time. And that's how life has been for so long. That just feels normal. But I want you to know that you don't have to feel like your value rises and falls all day long. You don't have to wonder about your worth. You can know that you are valuable. So what do we do with all of this? We've been taught by the world around us and sometimes even by ourselves that our value goes up when we perform well and goes down when we mess up. But Jesus tells a completely different story. And if we're going to live in that truth, here are 2 questions you can start asking yourself this week. Am I performing for love or living from it? This is a big one. So many of us spend our days trying to earn love by getting better grades, being funnier, dressing cooler, achieving more, or making fewer mistakes. It's like we believe that if we just do enough, we'll finally feel valuable. But Jesus flips that upside down. Jesus says you're already valuable, already loved, before you do anything. So instead of living a life like a performance to win approval, you can start living from a place of love and security. You can stop trying so hard to prove you're worth something and start believing you already are. So ask yourself this week, am I doing this because I think it will make me more lovable or because I already know I am? What would change if I believed I was already enough? If you already believe that your value couldn't rise or fall, how would that change the way you treat yourself or your friends or the people who annoy you? Maybe you'd stop tearing other people down to feel better about yourself. Maybe you'd stop obsessing over your image and start focusing on what actually brings you peace. Maybe you'd give yourself a break when you mess up. Maybe you'd be quicker to forgive others and yourself. So try asking this during the week. What would I do differently right now if I truly believed that I was already enough? The better you know God, the more you'll be able to see yourself the way He does. Not based on your performance, not based on what others say, but based on the truth that you are already deeply loved and already worth pursuing. Remember, loving your life comes from knowing your worth. When you head out today, I want you to imagine what it would feel like if you really knew your value didn't change, whether you made the team or quit the team, failed the quiz or aced the quiz, got the attention or got ignored, got the date or got dumped. If you knew your worth didn't change, how much better would you talk about and treat people? There's no downside to seeing your value through God's eyes. Loving your life really does come from knowing your worth, and it all starts with changing the way you see you.